I think that I always kind of struggled with something. Things kind of progressed, and I just got really depressed.
I had no idea. I didn't think it was as serious as it was.
Once I started talking about it, I had family members all coming to me and telling me all the stuff that they went through. Not even just they wanted to comfort me, but it's like they wanted to be telling what happened to them, like they wanted someone to share this with. I just feel like if we had been talking about that stuff before, we could have been helping each other. I am Annika Thomas. Join the conversation.
Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Smith, board member of the Anti-Stigma Coalition, and on behalf of all of us, I'd like to welcome you to the latest in our series of Facebook Live events. This time, we are focusing on the state of stigma, young people, and mental health diagnoses. With local schools and college campuses getting a new school year underway, we thought it a good time to focus on young people and mental health. Returning to campus each fall could be an exciting time, but can also be a stressful one. This can be especially true for students with mental health diagnoses. But schools and colleges are recognizing this, and many initiatives are being implemented to address stigma and help students to connect with their peers in positive and meaningful ways. From teen chat lines to more informal strategies, many schools are encouraging young people to reach out, share their struggles, and find support. But what is it really like in local dorms, halls, and classrooms? How is the stigma around mental illness playing out between students, between faculty and students, and at the administrative level? What can be done in schools and colleges to build even more positive environments and decrease the effects of stigma even further? Today, our panelists will explore these and other related questions. Before I introduce our panelists, a couple of quick things. Our program is up to 1 hour. During this time, if you have a question or comment, please type it in the chat box and we will respond accordingly. Your questions often lead to some great dialogue, so please don't be shy. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our panelists for this time. Nicole Shields. Nicole is a youth peer advocate program manager with Mental Health Advocates of Western New York. She's a native of Buffalo and a graduate of SUNY ECC in Empire. Entering the human services field in March of 2011 to support people with disabilities was truly life-changing for her. Nicole quickly learned that her passion and purpose was to help others. This was also the start of her recovery journey. Volunteering and giving back to the community are key priorities for her, along with spending time with her husband, 2 daughters, and 2 dogs. Nicole has volunteered with numerous organizations over the years and continues to do so with great enthusiasm and energy. Her mantra, which has been adopted by others who she has shared her strength and hope with, is to keep going, keep growing. Nicole's looking forward to continuing to spread awareness of mental health and addiction in hopes of ending the stigma. Thanks for joining us, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Laura Spencer. Dr. Laura Spencer is the Director of Mental Health Clinics for Harmonia Healthcare. She has a PhD in Counsel Education from SUNY Buffalo. She has a Master's in Human Relations from the University of Oklahoma and is a New York State licensed mental health counselor. She is trained in acceptance and commitment therapy and narcissistic abuse, solution-focused therapy and motivational interviewing, and has years of experience working with children and youth. She provides parent training and treats mood and anxiety disorders. Laura leads Harmonia's clinics and the expanded programs dealing with children, youth, and families. Laura enjoys working with people to help them recognize and attain where they wish to be. She values Harmonia's approach to work-life balance, as work is important, but taking care of ourselves in other areas only makes us better in our work. Laura is a Buffalo native who finds her balance in family and friends, both 2-legged and 4-legged, spending time in green space, cooking big meals, and exploring the world near and far. For over 12 years, Harmonia has provided school-based mental health counseling to students age 13 and older at Lakeshore High School, and is also partnering with several other Southtown school districts to serve more rural and Native American students and their families. Welcome to our panel, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
Sean Treese Alexander. Sean Treese is a 19-year-old college student from Buffalo, formerly attending Canisius and currently attending Villa Maria College. Brings a valuable perspective as someone living with a mental health diagnosis. A passionate artist with a love for drawing and photography, Sean Treese is known for her friendly demeanor and positive outlook. Her experiences and insights make her a compelling voice in discussions about mental health awareness and support for young adults. Thanks so much for being part of our discussion, Sean Treese.
Thank you for having me.
And welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for taking time out to discuss this important topic, especially at this time of year. I'd like to get started by hearing more about the agencies that you represent. So Nicole, could you please tell us about Mental Health Advocates of Western New York? Your organization really changed its name, right?
Thank you so much for having me today, Matt. This is truly a pleasure to be here.
Nicole?
So we haven't recently changed our name. Our official name is Mental Health Association of Erie County. But for the past 8 years, we've been doing business as Mental Health Advocates of Western New York. Mental Health Advocates of Western New York is an amazing agency that has a team of deeply committed mental health advocates who provide essential non-clinical services that address the needs of individuals, families, and communities living with mental illness. We promote mental health and well-being for people all ages and demographics throughout Western New York.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Nicole. Appreciate that much, and thanks for being with us. Laura, Harmonia is relatively new, isn't it? There was like a merger, I believe, of a couple of organizations. And what is it that you do, and who do you serve?
Yeah, so that's correct. We were originally Community Concern, and we merged with Hamburg Counseling in 2017 or 2018. So relatively new, but we've had a South Towns presence since the 70s, actually, in one form or another. We have 2 mental health clinics, one in Hamburg, one in Derby, and a satellite clinic in Lakeshore, as you mentioned earlier. And we will be expanding to Silver Creek in just a few weeks, hopefully. So we provide services for adolescents 13 and up, and we go all the way right to, age 100 in our clinic.
So you really received like a big grant from, was it Mother Cabrini to do more?
Yes, Mother Cabrini, which was, we got that last year. It was really exciting, really big grant, which allows us to provide satellite clinics in schools. And we are working with a few schools to hopefully get those established and perhaps expand to middle schools as well. We also have a couple other services that we work in tandem with, senior services and health homes. But our biggest provider of services is definitely our mental health clinics.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
Sean Treese, I understand you've done some work with Compeer. And what have you been doing with Compeer? What's that been like for you?
Working at Compeer, we kind of provide a outlet for those who feel they don't have anybody. More or less what I do, I wouldn't say like an intern, but I kind of provide help for anybody who needs help here. I help host like events. Like recently I helped with a Chevetta's drive-thru. So like small like events like that, but working at Compeer, it's like a nice fun atmosphere. There's a lot of people who are understanding. You can go and like talk to anybody and they'll be open ears pretty much. So it's nice.
I imagine a lot of people have benefited from your lived experience. You're pretty open sharing about that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, good. Another opportunity here today because everyone's going to want to hear your on this, as you are a student yourself right now.
Yes.
Young people throughout the next hour. Well, thank you all three of you for the work that you're doing outside of this discussion and for taking time out from that work to be with us today. We really appreciate it. Here we are in the fall with schools getting underway and or just about to get underway. And it's an exciting time for many, but also a challenging time for some people with mental health diagnoses. What are some of those challenges that young people are seeing, especially this time of year, and what's being done to help make that less difficult? Nicole, go first.
Absolutely, Matt. So I have 2 girls. They're 16 and 12. So I'm living in this right now with them, going back to school and experiencing some anxiety, a little depression, more anxiety though, nervous about what school's going to be like, if they're going to be in classes with their friends, and if they're going to have someone that they can talk to and reach out to. One of the resources that Mental Health Advocates provides is a teen chat line. It is Monday through Friday from 2 to 8. It is accessed through our website, mhawny.org, and it's anonymous, it's confidential. It is a resource that youth can use to reach out to one of our youth peer advocates live and chat with them and talk about their struggles, what's going on with them. They may not have that trusted person that they feel comfortable talking to at home. This is a great opportunity for them to reach out to somebody who has that lived experience, who knows what the struggles are like, who've been where they are, going back to school, going to high school, middle school, colleges. So I think anxiety is a big one, and it's our job as adults to be there to support and to listen and help them as much as possible to get through that.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Laura, what are you seeing? What have you, in your experience, does this time of year mean for people?
So I think the biggest issues I have seen for students is just responses to bullying. They come in a lot, especially middle schoolers come in a lot. Middle school is especially difficult from my experience as a clinician for lots of reasons. Some of it's developmental, some of it's just kind of like shifting of friend groups. And responding to that is especially difficult. And I think we're not always really sure how to respond to that just as a society. And schools certainly have their struggles with that as well. College students, I worked with college students, and they sometimes struggle with being isolated and loneliness and trying to link with new people, especially if they've gone on the other side of the state or even the other side of the country, and finding people with whom they have things in common.
Right. That's right. This time is exciting. This time also has those kind of concerns that come along.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Sean Treese, we're going to lean on you heavily for the perspective of today. Harken back to when you were in high school, harken back to your other college experiences. What does this time of year mean for someone like yourself?
Normally around this time of the year, it's like with high school, it could be slight anxiety or nervousness because, you're almost out of high school if you're like upperclassmen. If you're lowerclassmen, you're just coming into high school straight out of middle school. And sometimes the transition can be very big and difficult for some people. Based off what I've seen, especially when I started my first year of college at Canisius, it was more or less like nervousness because, it was a new environment. It was like a very big transition. And then you have like, people who are excited for you. And then you have like people who are like trying to already set expectations. And then it kind of begins to take a toll. And what I eventually like ended up doing, of course I made friends. I had tried out for like dance team, cheer team, stuff to like kind of like help my transition better. And with that, I met friends who were going through the same thing as me pretty much. So like having people who understand where you're coming from, it helps knowing that you're not alone.
Well, thank you for that. I know that you've experienced a couple different colleges here. What was done as part of orientation? Do you recall? I mean, what kind of happened through that vehicle?
For orientation, it was a week long at Canisius. At Villa, it was like a day. It was like they of course like helped you like with like classes and things like that, like transitioning into college, of course. And they hosted like little small events in the midst of it. When I went, they had this like big ceremony for us, like for the new coming students. It caught us all by surprise though, but it kind of gave us a little bit of like excitement, but then it was just like, oh my god, like we start in a couple days, we're not ready. Like, you feel you're not ready yet because it's fastly approaching. But at Villa, they kind of were more, I wouldn't say like less like high expectation, but like it wasn't as much. More or less like they talked to us, of course. They showed us like where like our classes were. The cool thing is about Villa, they set like a designated time where like no student has classes. They call it campus hour. And we have like our cafeteria. It's called the Commons. And we, from 11 to 12, minus lunch, of course, we're free to like kind of like relax, hang out with our friends, kind of unwind before our next set of classes, if we have a next set of classes once 12 hit. And they hosted like small events like bingo. They host like small parties like Valentine's Day, before break parties, like things like that. It kind of more or less helped with the mental strain, because it allows people to know, like, okay, I have this time, this designated time where I can just go, I can hang out with my friends, I don't have to worry about my homework right now, and just relax and pretty much, you know.
Having that brief moment, plus the opportunity to talk to other people, which of course is one of the things we're
Yeah.
really kind of promoting here, right? Well, thanks for that, Laura. What do you what I really want to get to the heart of is, what does it look like right now in the school? You know, in terms of mental health, what is the climate? You know, what are your people seeing in the schools that you serve? Oh, Laura, I think you're muted.
Of course I am. I'm starting.
That's okay.
So it does depend on the student, right? And especially in our rural area, there's sort of this wide range of socioeconomic status, so that can have an effect on some students. And kids are really still recovering from COVID. It was really hard, especially for kids. You know, I think about, it's been 4 or 5 years now. So some of those kids that are going into middle school were in primary grades, and now going into college, there's still lots of things that they're reacting to and responding to. And again, just sort of all the things that we've always seen with kids. Developmental things like, I'm the only one that's experiencing this. I can't tell anybody else because I might be weird, like just being in your head, right? And just in responding to just normal shifting dynamics with friends and family. And academics.
Right, because in the backdrop of all this, there is an expectation that you show up and pay attention and follow rules and do all the work, right?
Yeah.
That's all there too, amongst that. Nicole, what are your people telling you in terms of the schools, in terms of the general beliefs about mental health and mental illness, acceptance levels? What are you hearing?
Yeah, there's still that stigma out there, unfortunately. I think, just as Laura mentioned, they don't want to mention that they're struggling with something because they don't want to feel judged or like there's something wrong with them. So then they suffer in silence and they don't seek the help of at least one person that they can talk to. And without having that help and that base to be able to control their emotions, it's really hard for them to move forward in their learning. You know, if their basic emotions and mental health are not being captured, that social emotional learning is so important, especially when they're younger. The younger that they are and the more that can be started in the schools, more likely that they're going to be successful the older that they get, and to be able to handle the challenges as they get older and life gets harder and harder. So yeah, I feel like there's great resources available. I think some schools can do better, of course. You know, we can always improve on having the resources available. And some districts are on it. You know, they want us, our youth peer advocates, in there right away. They've planned months ago for us to come in there this fall, and that's great to see. So some schools are gung-ho and they see the importance of mental health and social emotional learning, and unfortunately some schools not so much.
So we still have a little bit of marketing issue here, a little bit of a sales issue here with some of our partners. Well, that's part of the work, right? And that's part of what this dialogue is also about, making this normal and making this more accessible. You know, I keep on going back to you, but I think that Sean Treese, the overall pulse, you know, is there a better level of acceptance now about mental illness among young people, or is it still full of stigma and problems?
I'll say it's both.
Okay.
Some are accepting, like they understand, and others are not so much. Others believe, you know, that mental health isn't serious based off of previous generations and experiences. They always tend to call like my generation soft because we're more likely to have like mental illnesses when in reality it's like anyone can relatively get it. We're not soft because we have mental issues, and statistics have showed that it gets higher and higher among students, high school students, college students, young adults. It gets higher, and yet some people are becoming accepting, but others are still like in this like mindset that like mental health isn't important at all.
Mhm. Is there some degree of not believing it's real?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
That
it-
like it's more or less like when it comes down to mental health, like, oh, if you have this and that, then you have no reason that you're feeling like this. It's like that. It's pointless. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you can still have everything and you could still suffer from anxiety. You could still have everything and you could still suffer from depression or whatever the case may be. It doesn't relatively matter what you have, it can still happen.
Mhm. I read some people are basically sharing the opinion that your generation, Chantrice, is going to be kinder,
Yeah.
accepting, and more understanding than prior groups of people. I hope that's true. How do you feel about that?
I believe it's true because from a generation who understands like and knows like, eventually somewhat more of an aspect of like mental health in general, yeah, we would be more understanding and accepting because, most of us are experiencing it, so we can know where the younger generation or the generation after us are coming from when they come to us for these kind of things.
Thanks. First question is on the chat, and when they come in, would you like to field them? So our first question is, from a parent, how can I tell if I need to step in to help my college-age children while trying to give them independence? So college-age children, how do I know when it's appropriate for me to step in, basically, is the question. Anybody got an answer for this person?
I have 2 college-age children.
Thank you, Laura.
I can try.
Good.
So I think the thing we should encourage in college-age children, and especially in those who have moved out, who are dorming, but even those who live at home, is really trying to be as autonomous and independent as they feel capable of doing. And I like the idea of always being able to provide a soft landing, right? So it's much easier to be independent and autonomous if you have a safe place to go, a safe person to listen to, and maybe a place to go home on the weekends if you need a break, or just a nightly check-in. But I really think it needs to be up to your college-age student and not up to the parents, right? They need to be the ones who direct it.
Very good. Thanks, Laura. Nicole, you have anything to add on that?
I do. So, just looking for signs and symptoms. If they're isolating, if they're pulling back, if they're not doing things that they used to enjoy, kind of watching for those changes in just their personality. And just like it was mentioned, keeping that conversation open, but allowing them to initiate the deeper conversations, but knowing that there is a parent to be a safe place, a soft spot, and to be there to help them through any struggles that they're going through. And just as long as you're assuring them that you're there for them, I think that's everything. And not having those conversations is where it gets a little tricky. So,
yeah.
Gotcha. We know when we don't talk,
And I just wanted to add one thing. It's lots of times we see in that late adolescent time is lots of the onset of serious mental health problems, like maybe serious depression or even more serious mental health issues. And if kids go away and they come back, we can really see those differences because we don't see them every day. Whereas if they're home, you might not notice those little signs of depression. So I think it is almost an opportunity to see that there might be a problem that we didn't see before. So it is, being willing to say, hey, is everything okay? What can I do? How can I help you?
Right. I think it's important to know. Thanks for bringing that up. Chantrice, as a student, what's your perspective on that question?
From personal experience, it's keeping communication open. I didn't dorm when I was at Canisius. I stayed home. But it's still like I still felt the weight, even though I wasn't staying like on campus like my friends were. But it was mostly just communication. My grandma was always like making sure I was okay. I know towards the middle / end of my semester there, I was really in a slump. She was able to tell, and I remember I broke down in tears because I was stressed out. But I would say communication is key. You know, but I wouldn't say forcing it out of them though. Like, don't force them to tell you like what's going on if they don't feel like they're ready to open up about it yet. Just like that, keeping that line of communication, like Miss Laura said, leaving it to the college age student instead of just letting it be relied on the parent.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate that. I hope that satisfied the question. We got another one that just came in. So it's I know we talked about bullying earlier in the discussion and the role of bullying with mental health and the overall climate of school buildings and campuses. The question is, what advice do you give to somebody who feels like they're going through bullying? Big heavy sigh, I know, because when we get Laura, I'd love to turn to you though. Is there any kind of an answer for that?
Well, it's the short answer is it's complicated, right? I have worked with many children who are bullied, and I do lots of work. And I say I've worked with lots of adults who have been bullied as well. And the point is, it just stays with you, right? So when I work with children who are bullied, one of the things I work with them on is that trying to teach what is it that a bully wants, right? And then sort of kind of trying to, even if it's not their, absolutely not the child who's being bullied, it's not their fault, but learning not to respond to what the bully is doing outwardly, because when you respond to somebody who's bullying you, you're giving them what they want. So there's that. So it's kind of that idea of, I'm going to learn how to ignore what the bully's doing and then getting help, right? Because you can't handle it alone. Kids think, oh, I'll have to hide it. I should hide it. As the victim, I can get in trouble if I turn this person in, those kinds of things. Schools, I think, do what they can to help, but lots of time these things happen when nobody's looking. So that can make it tricky. So that's why I like to sort of empower the person who's being bullied with things that they can do. I also like to point out to them that what is being said to them is not true, that what is being said to them is the perspective and thoughts or opinions of somebody that they really don't care about, and that there are other people who value them, and that those are the opinions that they care about. So there's lots of different things that you do that can be helpful and within their control, more so than what a bully does.
Thank you for that. Nicole, I see you nodding. Is there something you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think letting the youth know that it's not true, and kind of empowering them and letting them know, like, there's probably something deeper going on with that other person who is bullying them, and that maybe their home life isn't so great. Maybe they're being bullied at home, and that some are sicker than others. And it's just reassuring that child that they're okay, and just to kind of try to brush off as much as possible what's going on, and to just not give it energy.
There's also, I wonder about how much social media exacerbates these issues, and any tips on how to handle it that way. I mean, how do you juggle that?
As a parent, it's tough. Social media, my kids are on it, but I have to be very, very mindful and have those conversations with them on how to be safe and to limit their time that they're on it. And just remind them that it's a lot easier for people to say mean things behind a screen than it is in person. So it's very, very tough with that social media. So glad it wasn't around when I was younger. So.
A lot of people say that. Honestly, I'm going to date myself, of course. But when I got off the bus and you walked up the driveway, whatever bad stuff had been happening in school was over. Yes. Now, unfortunately, we have all these online personas that often get smeared, or people say bad things about you, defending your honor at 2:00 in the morning for some kids. Yeah. And that's, of course, not a good thing. How do you feel about all this stuff, Chantrice?
From someone who was bullied, it's it's nice to like, how can I describe this? Having an outlet. As far as like my school, my middle school, I was bullied in grade school and then in middle school. But the reason for bullying when it came down to me was because I was standing up for others. I stood up for one of my friends who was getting bullied, and then they turned their attention on both of us. And I continue to stand my ground though, because I felt like, I'm not just going to sit and let this happen. I'm not just going to be a bystander, because that tends to happen too. There are like some people who can bear witness to like bullying in certain situations, and then they choose not to do something, whether it might be, oh, they're scared, or they might be a part of it. Like, it ranges, but I felt like dealing with it at first by myself, it had reached a peak, and I had to like, go to like a teacher or like a counselor. I went to a teacher, and my teacher didn't really do anything. She just told them to stop, which didn't really work. They just kept going. Fast forward, I went to a counselor. Me and my friend went to our counselor. Our counselor had set up like a intervention, but like a mediation in a sense. It was like me and my friend, and then the bullies who were bullying us, to kind of like see why they were bullying us, and the entire situation. But it didn't end well because it kept doing it. And then I felt like, well, what else do I do? Like, who else am I supposed to go to? Like, the teachers isn't helping, the counselors isn't helping. So I went to my parents. My parents wanted to set up a meeting with the principal and talk to the bullies along with the bullies' parents. But because of how my school was, it wasn't the best. And if parents met up, there was always altercations. So, I mean, in my case, I would say I would continue to stand up. If you are, even if you are someone who just so happens to be getting bullied as well, I feel like not only standing up for yourself, but also making sure you have an outlet, people who can help, would benefit greatly. And yes, I do believe social media is the worst when it comes down to bullying, because it doesn't help. It makes matters worse. Very, very worse. I've always seen how cyberbullying is always one of the key factors that leads to teens ending their own lives, or kids ending their own lives, or bullying in general, different types. It's a lot. It's a very difficult topic. Bullying sucks.
And honestly, really appreciate your courage and your willingness to talk about it. I know this isn't easy, and very grateful for your willing to share your experiences with this. It's not an easy thing. If it was easy, we would have fixed it by now.
Right.
We know it's complicated, and we know that it involves regular and real people. But talking about it, I think, is certainly part of the way out.
Yeah.
And you do so, but thanks for your courage and your willingness. For those of you that are just joining us, I'm Matt Smith from the Anti-Stigma Coalition, and I'm joined by Nicole Shields of Mental Health Advocates of Western New York, Dr. Laura Spencer of Harmonia Healthcare, and Chantrice Alexander, who is currently a student at Villa Maria College. We've been discussing mental health in young people, especially those with diagnoses, and what's going on at local schools and universities. We'll be talking even more about the role of stigma as an impediment to addressing mental health issues and the strategies for overcoming it. Everyone joining us, please do take a minute and check out our website, letstalkstigma.org, and maybe join the over 4,000 others in taking the pledge to end stigma. Also, if you are connected with a business, organization, or faith community, you can become an organizational member of the Anti-Stigma Coalition. You can find information for this on the website under the Members tab. All right, now back to our panelists and our discussion. So more questions are coming in, and since we're in that area, we might as well just continue talking about these things. The question is, besides people being mean on social media, I see people watching themselves not be included in parties or events and how that affects them. What advice do you have to deal with that feeling of sadness and being left out? How do we handle that? What can be done to alleviate some of that? Got any thoughts, Laura?
This is really tricky because I think this is something a parent might be able to direct, but the parent doesn't always know that it's happening, right? So leaving people out, excluding them is actually a form of bullying. So social exclusion, it's like it kind of reminds me of, if anybody's ever seen Dumbo, which is it's an older movie, but it's like those mother elephants keeping Dumbo out of the herd. I think it was Dumbo they kept out of the herd. But so it's meant to make you feel bad, and being rejected is a very primal response because it makes us feel unsafe. So as a parent, I would encourage my children to include everybody. And if I were the parent of the child who's being excluded, I might encourage them, although this is very difficult for some, to ask, hey, what's going on? Why am I not invited? If you feel safe enough to do that. But it's a very difficult area to navigate. But I do think it begins with parenting and the environment at home, and even maybe a school environment too, to say, hey, just so you know, purposely leaving people out is really a form of rejection and bullying.
I think there's also there's still the stigma and there's the fear, right? There's almost like contagion once it's known. I think when a person comes out as having some sort of mental health issue, sometimes the reaction from parents is to actually steer their kids away from those kids. And that can be so harmful. What can we say to those parents to make them feel like they shouldn't do that, I guess? Nicole, you got any answers?
Yeah, I would just say, treat others the way that you want to be treated, right? That's what it comes down to, the basic golden rule. As a parent myself and as an adult, and sometimes it can even be tough feeling like you're left out of certain things, or, and hard not to take it personal or that rejection. So for me, just as a parent, talking to my kids, just having that connection, like it's happened to me before, there's been times where I wasn't included, and it's hard, but sometimes you have to sit with it. You got to feel it to heal it. And it's okay, because it's going to happen, unfortunately. It's part of life where we're not always going to be included. We're not always going to be seen or heard. And just to focus on the people that do see us and that do hear us. And those are the relationships that we want to focus on. But for the parents, just include everyone. I love when schools have, like my classroom and different classrooms that my kids have been in. You can't send a birthday invitation out to just some kids. It's either all the kids or no kids, or just, or all the girls, all the boys. But I think it's all the class or no one is how it should be.
I think many schools have that policy. I know we talked a little bit about programs a little bit earlier, but I'd like to make sure we give that its just due here in this conversation. There are some things that your organizations are doing kind of systemically that help to raise all the boats, right? That help to give skills and information from kids from kindergarten all the way up to hope that bullying is decreased, because it's how do we treat each other and how to communicate and how to resolve conflicts is at the core of some of the things that you're teaching all the kids in a universal way. Would you say that's true, Nicole, of your program, some of them?
Oh, absolutely. That's, the YPAs, the Youth Peer Advocates, they connect, they share their own lived experience with the youth. They connect on that peer level, and they're able to help them to work through situations and just help them develop the skills necessary to get through those trying times, such as being left out, and just to navigate those uncomfortable feelings.
Right. And I hope also to just tell kids in general, don't leave each other out.
Yes, include everybody. Yeah.
What Chantrese shared about not being a bystander, stepping in and standing up to what she was seeing took great courage. But if everybody did it, it would take less courage and there'd be less of this stuff going on. Right. So,
right.
So I really think that, again, applause to you for being courageous there, Chantrese. I'd like to talk a little bit. Obviously, we want to get to stigma and more and more, because that's, we are the Anti-Stigma Coalition. I worry about school climates, not only student to student, but faculty to student and administration and policies and things like that could be stigmatizing. Chantrese, what's your overall take on faculty members and their knowledge and understanding of how to handle people that have diagnoses?
I think for as a college student, I think it could depend on the professor or your teacher or the faculty member. Because like I said, like some are more understanding and some aren't. You might get like a professor who believes in mental health days, like take a mental break. I remember I had an English professor who was like that, you know, if you need a mental day, you know, you just let him know. He's like, okay, you know, I'll see you the next time we have class. Be sure to look at this when you get a chance. But some teachers, they don't get it. Like they expect you to just be like this every time, whether you are having like a bad day. And some are easy to talk to. I had a couple who were, I had a couple who weren't. Um, it's more or less like, I wouldn't say like weighing your pros and cons when it comes down to faculty, but I will say that.
Now, yeah, I know I've heard that, you know, from some young people that sometimes some faculty members dismiss it as
Yeah.
not true, not real, just get tough, get through it. We're going to tough love you through this.
Yeah.
The world doesn't care, do your homework anyway, you know, that kind of thing. And even some that even kind of have made young people feel, you know, belittled, you know.
Yeah, they could like, yeah, they could like sometimes either make things like 10 times better or 10 times worse. It really is no sometimes in between.
Okay.
It's really one or the other.
So Laura, what are we doing to help raise all boots with faculty in terms of their knowledge?
So I have a kind of a little inside knowledge on faculty is that I haven't been an adjunct professor. And the interesting thing about being a faculty member is there's really not a lot of information given on, I mean, we're told, okay, this is what you do if you have a student of concern, or this is what you do if there's a risk, right? But we're not told really what to do in a classroom basis to address these things, right? And so it really is left up to the professor, sorry. And we're not taught as instructors in college really a lot about how to sometimes even instruct. We just take our knowledge base and put it together in a syllabus and a curriculum and teach it. So I actually am an undergrad in education, so I was able to bring that information with me, that knowledge, and I was very lucky to have that. But also as a mental health counselor, I was very much about, you know, if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to be a good student? I mean, if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to be good at anything? So I am often shocked when people are not respectful of that, knowing that lots of things can happen in our outside lives that will affect how we respond to our learning or being able to get something done. I mean, that could be as something like, what if you fall and break your arm? How are you going to get that paper done if you've been in the emergency room for 8 hours the day before? So I think what maybe we just need to do, I don't know if it's as a society or as professionals, to say life happens and we need to take care of ourselves and stop being so focused on our performance all of the time. Yes, it's important, but there's other things that happen as well.
Sure. I think that investments by administrations and faculty towards their own mental wellness is a great statement to make. Trying to normalize self-care, acknowledging the stress that everyone's under, acknowledging that faculty at all levels are at ground zero for a lot of the stress and mental health issues that are manifesting.
Correct.
And you got to take care of those people and make them understand this stuff is real. And if people are taking it upon themselves, I think they are a more general belief that this is real, and maybe that leads to more kindness and understanding across the board. Nicole, do you have any programs at MHA that help faculty?
We do. We actually offer a presentation to faculty and other business organizations where our youth peer advocates or somebody else from our organization will come out, present, and just to help that person to become a trusted person, to be a safe person, to know how to kind of handle the situations when you come to them with a problem, and how to talk to them, other questions that they can ask to get some more information, maybe if they feel that a youth is struggling. So I love when we get requests from districts or organizations to have us come out and do a presentation on mental health and coping skills and how to be a trusted person. As was mentioned, it's that ripple effect in schools. The more that the faculty and the administrative are on board with mental health, it's going to create that effect all throughout the whole culture of the school and help students that much more.
I agree. I think that really it's incumbent upon all of us in the field to try to really foster that among colleges and high schools and elementary schools all the way up. Just this idea of self-care, this idea of mental wellness being for everybody, providing as much as we can for the faculty and staff so that they do a better job of providing all of that in a broad way with all of the students and families that they serve. So thanks for sharing all that. I got kind of an important question here in the chat, which we need to get to. The question came in, how do you handle those that express self-destructive thoughts? So if you encounter someone that has expressed that, what should the first steps be for you?
So are we asking, I guess if we're asking this just as a non-clinician, there actually is a training on that. There's just a standard training for anybody. They can go through the QPR Institute and learn to do that training pretty quickly. And it's QPR stands for
question, persuade, refer.
Correct. Yes. And that a lot of times people believe that if we ask, are you thinking of hurting yourself or thinking of, dying, that we think that we're going to plant some seeds in that, and that's actually not true. It opens the door for people expressing themselves and saying, I need help. So the QPR training is a really good introduction into that.
I agree. And I think one of the key things we need to tell everybody is you are not going to cause someone to attempt suicide. You're not going to cause someone to self-harm by asking, are you thinking about those things? In fact, you might save a life.
That is correct.
So please don't be afraid to do that. We have another question here. When becoming a parent, it isn't in the handbook how to deal with mental health issues at various ages of kids and young adults. Is there a place parents can learn some basic mental health skills? Anyone have a nice resource that they like to send their parents to? How does a parent get up to speed on these things? What can we do to help them?
That's a great question. So on our website, we do have mhawny.org/justtell1/about. That is our toolkit on there. We have resources on to how to initiate those conversations with youth as parents, and for youth as well, how to talk to your parents and how to have those conversations. So it's a great place to go and just to start.
Okay, great. Well,
I have one other thought, and that is if you are struggling with parenting a child with some mental health issues, you can get parenting support in the form of family counseling for that, and they can give you lots of great ideas on how to manage behaviors. I've done that. I've done a lot of parenting work. It can be very effective.
Thank you for that. The questions, go ahead, Chantrice.
I personally took this mental health first aid at Compeer. You could get certified. They walk you through all of the steps and the signs. They'll help open like a great perspective or general perspective, so that way you can handle situations better.
That's a good resource, Chantrice. Absolutely. I find that it gives you a nice rundown of some of the terms that you're hearing, but might not really know what they actually are, and it makes it more real, and it makes it, I think, a little bit less scary by knowing that information. I think that you're right. I'm spot on with that. Questions keep coming. Informed care. What exactly is it? Would someone care to share that one with our audience?
Oh, okay, I can take that one. Trauma-informed care is simply just the idea that anybody who you run into, and we think of it usually in clinics, but it can be in the education system as well, has something that has happened to them that is making them act in the way that they're acting. So it could be one major trauma, so experiencing something horrible, or it could be something that has happened to them over time. And that is creating the response that you're seeing, whether it be anxiety, depression, or acting out. So it's just that we are informed that probably what you're seeing now is the result of just an adverse experience.
Right. I think largely it's the fundamental shift from, what's wrong with you to what happened to you, and trying to come at every person we encounter with compassion and understanding, and acknowledging that people don't generally do things just because. especially bad things, they don't generally do just because. I think that they do things for reasons. And just giving the person that grace and that space of knowing that something may be causing what they're doing that you don't like, I think makes us orient more towards kindness and patience.
That is correct, yes.
And I think that's really, that's what an important change in the field, when trauma-informed care kind of came about and came into vogue. So very cool and interesting. We've got a few minutes left, talking a little bit about stigma in young people and what's going on in college campuses and high schools. Sean, Therese, is there any major differences you found with how colleges handle this information and handle mental health compared to what high schools are doing?
Yes, I saw a major difference. I felt like colleges were understanding, but if I were to have compared to high school, like high school teachers were more understanding. I was like a sophomore during COVID. So once we went back for that first year since COVID, it was like they had more like compassion, understanding, like they understood, just coming out of COVID, we're all like, not mentally there. We've been stuck in the house, like doing online schooling. Some of us probably weren't used to being online schooling and it affected them that way. Or, being in school brought like, anxiety because we haven't been in so long. So I feel like high school was able to like genuinely understand, like we have more resources, we have more people to go to because we knew like, oh, there was someone who felt similar. Whereas in college, it's like you'll meet people who felt similar, but someone's not gonna generally understand unless you like genuinely explain it to them, more or less, so to speak.
Thanks a lot, Sean, Therese. So I have a question that's probably more for Nicole and Laura. What have we seen change? I mean, what is the situation with stigma and awareness and understanding now versus, say, 10 years ago or 15 years ago? Have we seen any major changes? What do you think, Nicole?
Yeah, social media, just as we touched on, that's a big change that has taken place with mental health. But I do think there are more conversations now than there was 20 years ago when I was in high school, for sure. I think the only time that I really remember talking about mental health was in my half year for 1 year health class that I was in. And it was barely like, thankfully I had a solid high school counselor who was there for me and was a trusted person and I could go to. Without that person, though, I would have really struggled even more in high school. And I think now, I don't know, I think maybe there's even more requirements on administrators, which creates even less time that they have available for students. So I worry about that. But I do think there are more conversations now than there were back then. So we're making progress. Definitely still have ways to go. That's my take on that.
Laura.
I think things have actually improved a lot in many ways. Maybe some of it's because of state mandates and maybe there's other reasons why. And actually, I think in some ways, social media, as much as we give it a bad rap, has helped things because it has created a safe place for many youth to discuss their mental health needs and spread the word on it. And maybe that's why they're kinder. I don't know, but I definitely see my kids are much more open to talk about these things than anybody was when I was in high school. And I'm not going to say when that was.
But we won't ask, and that's fine. So a question just came in, which we have time to handle, I think. What do we think of remote counseling? Are we fans? What are the pros and cons of remote counseling?
I think it's a mix of both. For someone, it could be like very like resourceful. Maybe like they are not comfortable going into the office or they can't find a way to the office, and maybe remote is the best option. It can be very helpful, or it could be very stressful. Bad Wi-Fi, signal's bad, technology issues. Those are the cons, but pros, or maybe another con, some people prefer to be in person, like seeing like someone face to face. They can like get that proper interaction. But I believe remote counseling is a great resource, just like counseling in general is a good resource, personally.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Laura, I know you're doing work with rural populations. I imagine you might have something to say about this.
Well, it definitely remote counseling saved us during COVID, right? And I'm very glad we can still use it. I know when I was working with students who wouldn't go to school and wouldn't leave the house, it really put us in a bind. What are we going to do? We could do home visits, which often in those days were not covered by insurance. So now that we have remote counseling, it makes things so much easier. But it isn't for everybody, and there are drawbacks. One of the big drawbacks I can think of is lack of privacy for some people, and that can create some safety issues, especially if you have somebody listening to what you say and you want to talk about the problems you might have in your relationship. But there's lots of, like they said, the benefits of if you don't have an automobile and you need that help, remote counseling is a lifesaver. So
I think we all agree that as opposed to nothing, as opposed to not talking, as opposed to just suffering in silence, it certainly is a helpful addition, to our tools. We've only got a few minutes to go. And what I'd like to do at this point is offer each of you a chance to talk about any other final thoughts, things maybe we didn't cover. Nicole, what would your message be to people?
Yeah, I just I feel that the youth have it harder today than I did 20 years ago, for sure. And I think it's important just for all of us to remember to be kind to one another and treat others the way that you want to be treated. You never know what somebody's going through. Just those simple rules. And the more that as adults that we display that and show our children that, the more likely that they're going to be to display those same kind characteristics. Mental health advocates, we have a free, confidential, and anonymous teen chat line. It's Monday through Friday from 2 to 8. It's operated by youth peer advocates who are between the ages of 18 and 30. Great resource for youth to have, just to be able to reach out to someone if they don't have somebody that they feel comfortable with, just to talk and connect with somebody. It's mhawny.org. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Nicole. Question just came in. You might be the person to handle it. As a parent, can they refer their child to an in-school clinic? Are you able to just do that as a parent?
Yeah. So I'm not sure about the in-school clinic part, but as a parent, you can refer your youth to us here at Mental Health Advocates of Western New York. We do offer one-to-one services with our youth peer advocates that can be done by referral from the school, from the parents, guardian, anyone who feels that a youth can benefit from that.
Thank you for that, Nicole. Appreciate it a lot. Laura.
So I'm going to second what Nicole said, and if we all live by the golden rule, I think there would be many less mental health problems, and we honestly would get along better. I would also say if you see a problem in your child, try to address it early. If you think it's just going to go away, it probably will not. Really try to be open-minded and listen to understand.
Appreciate that. Very sound advice, and thank you for sharing all that. And Sean Treese, final thoughts on this topic. What do you think?
I would say from a young adult to others, is nothing wrong with having a mental illness as much as people try to perceive that there isn't. Know that you're not suffering alone. There are others who are possibly in the same shoes as you. As long as you're understanding, be there for your friends, check on your friends, be sure to check on them because you never know what they could be what could be going on, what they could be going through. But yeah, I'll say that.
Well, we appreciate that very much. Thank you all for your honesty and your being so forthcoming. We encourage anyone that watches this to think about their places of where's their schools. Are we being accommodating enough? Are we battling stigma enough? Please do think about that and access these people with the programs that they're offering and the advice that they can give. So as a reminder to our audience, we need you to take the pledge to end stigma by going to our website, letstalkstigma.org. If your organization would like to join us in our cause, there's information on the website as well. Just click on the members tab to find out how. Together we can reduce stigma and create an environment of support where help seeking and help giving are the norm. Once again, I'd like to thank our panelists, Nicole Shields, Dr. Laura Spencer, and Chantrice Alexander. I'd also like to thank everyone behind the scenes, Mike Telesco from Telesco Creative Group for his vision and technical support, Karen Karaszewski from KKPR Buffalo for her support as well. We hope you'll join us for our next Facebook Live, which will be coming your way in September. If you joined us late or want to tell anyone about this episode, all of our Facebook Live programs are available at our website, letstalkstigma.org. So on behalf of the Anti-Stigma Coalition, until next time, I'm Matt Smith. Stand up to stigma and good luck on your wellness journey.